Invocation to the divine will in all our actions. I am nothing.
God is all.
Father, I love you.
Come, divine will, to think in my mind,
to circulate in my blood,
to look with my eyes,
to listen in my ears,
to speak in my voice,
to breathe in my breathing,
to beat in my heart,
to move in my motion,
to suffer in my suffering.
And may my soul, consumed
and fused with your will, be the living crucifix, emulated for the glory of the Father, to pray in me.
And then to offer this prayer to yourself as mine, to satisfy for the prayers of all. To give to the Father the glory that all creatures should give him.
To infuse in me the faith of Mary, most holy, in order to possess you as she possessed you. To infuse in me the hope of Mary, most holy, in order to desire you as she desired you.
to infuse in me the charity of Mary, most holy, in order to love you as she loved you.
To adore in me, and since your will multiplies acts to the infinite, thus I intend to give you the satisfaction as if
All had assisted at Holy Mass,
and give to all the fruit of the sacrifice, and impetrate salvation for all.
O Jesus, to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, I offer you my prayers, works, joys, and sufferings.
all that this day may bring, be they good or bad.
for the love of God,
For the conversion of sinners,
In reparation for all the sins committed against the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Amen.
Good evening. Welcome to Heart Talk. Tonight we have chosen to be controversial. We're here to proclaim publicly that we are pro-life Christians, and we are here to strengthen your desire to be more fully a pro-life Christian. To be a pro-life Christian means to become involved and to be holy. There is this reproductive health bill that has been hitting the headlines. It's been pushed by legislators, by the media, by proponents of the RH bill to be passed into law. Here is what's happening. Children are not seen anymore as blessings and fruits of marital love, but as burdens and obstacles to personal freedom. Parents are more attracted to material gain, leisure, and comfort than to the demands of raising children. We're given issues that pregnancy is a disease, that having babies is now a burden to our society. We are lured to raise no more than 2 kids through the use of contraception. The reason given is the overpopulation problem. Is there truth to this? You know, we are bombarded with the propaganda that women should exercise their rights to make an informed choice between the use of artificial contraceptives and natural family planning methods. This battle is not just in Congress, but in the hearts and minds of people. Today, there are many threats to the sanctity of human life, especially when life is weak and defenseless, in addition to poverty, hunger, disease, violence, and war. We must deeply be concerned about all the forces that threaten the well-being of all God's children. Being pro-life begins in our heart and in our soul. It's not only a banner you carry, but the spirit that emerges deep within your being. So tonight, we invited very distinguished guests. We are blessed to have with us, and I would like you to welcome them, Dr. Bernie Villegas, a co-founder and a member of the Board of Trustees of the University of Asia and the Pacific, a very prestigious private university of the Philippines, a Harvard graduate, a distinguished economist, author, and professor, a member of the Philippine Constitution Commission of 1986, a prolific author of economic textbooks. Also, please welcome Attorney Marwil Yasos, OP, a lawyer by profession, a Mariologist, a commissioned lay preacher, a consecrated secular Dominican, a formator of the Company of St. Dominic, and associate of Defensores Fidei Foundation. Please also welcome Dr. Montes, a dedicated doctor, known counselor, and psychologist. She gives talks and seminars on sexuality and teenage relationships on the religious, medical, and psychological perspective. Also professor of the University of Asia and the Pacific. Please welcome Mrs. Trissy Cepeda Season, a social scientist, a known feisty woman who is a pro-life, pro-God, pro-family advocate, a celebrity housewife, and a mother and activist, and a member of a known active political group, COPA. And of course, last but not the least, please welcome our three-time Congressman of Marinduque, Mr. Edmond Reyes, who is also a big fighter of pro-life. And of course, my husband, Mr. Gene Balestein, associate producer of Heart to Heart Talk and the prime mover of Mary's Army to Save Souls media movement. Good evening, everyone. You know, we're so blessed tonight. We're really like a powerhouse of guests, no?
Yes.
I would always hear Dr. Villegas at the UAP, and I would always admire him and say, oh, someday I wish I could invite him, and he's here right now. And of course, Congressman Edmond Reyes, you know, I hear and I read your email all the time about being a great fighter for pro-life. And everybody knows Dr. Lucille Montes, you know, and you're going around schools and different places, right, talking about family life.
Sex education.
Sex education, yes. And of course, Marwil, our Suki. So anyway, we'll be waiting for Trissy. She might have experienced some traffic, so we'll go ahead with our discussion. And we'll just first ask Dr. Montes, you know, when does life begin? Because we're all concerned about pro-life, and this has always been the debate, no?
Yes. Well, we all know it's from fertilization. The moment that there's a union of the sperm and the egg, then new life is there. And this has become a controversy a bit later on because there were groups that wanted to define the beginning of life at the moment of implantation. And because defining it that way will justify a lot of things like IUDs. And so any pre-implantation embryo that is removed from the uterus, they will say it's not abortion if you define the beginning of life from the moment of implantation.
Well, we all agree that's the Catholic view.
Is fertilization.
Yes, exactly,
yes.
You know. So why is it the church is so much against this RH bill? Before you answer that, Dr. Villegas, I'll ask Edmund here, because it's been in Congress for how many years now, and they've been rehashing and reviving it, and all of us have been vigilant, no? So why is it that up to now it has not been passed, and also why is the church opposing it? And we'll ask Dr. Villegas to answer that later on, but let's just talk about the RH bill, the Reproductive Health Bill.
Well, the first version I saw was back in 1998 during my first term, when they tried to pass it. They were unsuccessful. It was still a new bill at the time, and it was rather easy to oppose it. And of course, they sustained I'm talking about the proponents of this bill.
Yes.
They sustained their campaign for the passage of this bill, and I think quite effectively, because they were targeting the youth segment of our population, and they were kind of trying to pit the old and the new generation. Like the new generation is thinking that, you know, artificial contraceptives are okay, it's cool,
modern,
it's modern, you know, it's okay to have sex, you know, before marriage. And so it picked up in popularity, actually, and we had a more difficult time in the succeeding Congresses trying to defeat this bill because there was gathering public support from below. So that's where we are now. We're at we're at the 5th Congress, but they're trying to pass the bill.
Okay.
And then you have that survey.
Okay. The constitutionality of it, no? In case, just in case it has become a law, so Marvil, is it constitutional if ever it has become a law?
It is very unconstitutional for so many reasons and for many grounds. I'm going to enumerate them later. But first, it violates a basic declaration of state principle and policy that the state shall protect equally the life of the unborn and the mother from conception. Okay. So the word conception is very important. And we are not talking here about the medical definition, the philosophical definition, but the constitutional definition. The constitutional definition of conception is fertilization, meaning from the time that the egg cell is fertilized by the sperm cell, then insofar as the Constitution is concerned, there is human life. And the Constitution must protect it. Yun ang pinagbotohan sa Constitutional Commission. Kasama
and Dr. Villegas is part of that, a member of that 1986, right?
Yes. Well, all modesty aside, I was the proponent.
Oh, wow.
And I had to face all the objections. And as the attorney says, it doesn't matter what all the other arguments right now are being proposed, ensoulment, even citing Aristotle. All these are irrelevant because during the constitutional proceedings, we voted. How do you define conception? And I presented at the moment of fertilization. The vast majority said yes, agreed with me. So there's no more argument. If they want to question that, then they have to propose an amendment to the Constitution.
Okay, so why is the Catholic Church opposing this? Because it's definitely, it doesn't go with the teachings of Christ, no?
Yes, well, if you mean the hierarchy, because you are church, I am church, all of us are church, no? But in the hierarchy, the bishops, starting with the Pope, of course, it's for the moral reason that artificial contraceptives, which are going to be aggressively promoted by RH bill, are immoral, are intrinsically immoral. So that's the main reason. The church participates because the church has all the reason to declare moral principles.
The reason why we're putting up this show, because again, we are divided as people, right? And even among Catholics, a lot of them think that, because that will solve the problem of the overpopulation. And definitely it's a myth. And I'd like to ask Dr. Villegas, I've heard you a lot talk about that this country is definitely not facing that problem.
Yes. Now, I'm against the RH bill, first of all, because I follow the guidelines of the hierarchy. And the first reason is artificial contraceptives are immoral inherently. But I, as an economist, I'm against RH bill because it's founded in a completely erroneous economic theory that population growth is the cause of poverty. That has been disproved 100 times over the last 250 years since the time of Thomas Malthus, who was the first one to propound such a theory, that population is always increasing faster than food, and there will be millions who will starve, and so on and so forth. It never happened. Now, they're resuscitating a theory that has been disproved, but with more sophisticated so-called scientific arguments. And again, as an economist, I have exposed all of these arguments using Nobel Prize winners who are Jews, who are Muslims, who are non-Catholics, who have shown from their more profound studies than the few Filipino economists, and I don't want to sound condescending, who use samples that are very small. Like, for example, some of the economists in the Philippines who are in favor of the RH bill use 5, 6 countries in East Asia over a period of 10 to 15 years to show that population growth is the source of poverty. I cite, I repeat, Nobel laureates who study hundreds of years and hundreds of countries in their sample, and definitely any scientist would say the bigger the sample size, the longer the time series, the more dependable are the conclusions. Right. And I show them these evidences, but they still insist.
But the proponents of the RH bill saying that right now we have about 94 million Filipinos, and by 2005 it will go up to 120. I know. How can you argue with that?
Alam mo, problema dito hindi yung pagdami ng tao. Hindi problema ang tao. In fact, ang ating ekonomiya ay consumer-driven. Kaya lumalagong ekonomiya sapagkat may bumibili at nakikita natin yan sa paglalagay ng maraming mall. Pangalawa, yung mga Pilipino pumupunta sa abroad yan. Sa mga bansa ng Europa na nga mamatay na yung mga tao, doon tumatanda, walang nag-aalaga. Nagkakaroon ng pagkakataon yung mga Pilipino na magtrabaho bilang OFWs, bilang caregiver. At yun yung nagpapalaki ng ating ekonomiya, yung remittances. So paano ngayon nagiging problema yung tao? Hindi. Ang tao ang solusyon. Yung mga proponents nito hindi alam ang nangyayari sa kanayunan, sa probinsya, yung mga magsasaka. Hindi problema sa kanila kung nadadagdagan sila ng anak. Sapagkat yung karagdagang anak na yon ay tutulong sa pagsasaka. It's an additional hand to farm the land. So hindi problema ang tao. Ang problema, distribution of wealth. Ang problema, tanggalin ang corruption sa pamahalaan. Yun ang solusyon sa economic problem natin ngayon.
So poverty is not really caused because of overpopulation, right? And that's what they've been, spreading, that our country is overpopulated, we need to stop the growth rate, So what can you say about that?
On the contrary, right now, the most prosperous countries that will actually eclipse the US, Europe, and Japan over the next 20 years are the so-called emerging markets. And if you take a look at all of them, China, 1.3 billion. India, 1.1 billion. Indonesia, 250 million. Brazil, 180 million. They have been cited as the most promising countries over the next 20 years because of their large domestic markets. And the ones that are actually becoming more and more problematic from the economic standpoint are those that are very small in
and
population.
You have a number of countries, Dr. Villegas, I'll add to that.
Please.
Such as Russia, which is now giving incentives to its citizenry to increase the population of Russia. You have South Korea as well.
Singapore.
They have a booming economy, but they know that they're having a hard time taking care of their elderly people because there are no more younger people coming into the workforce. The same thing with Singapore, as you mentioned, and so on and so forth. And we're very fortunate in the Philippines that we have a stable, so far, workforce that is able to take care of its elderly. But if we change our growth rates, especially in this coming next few years, then we will be experiencing that hardship during our lifetime as well.
We've been so blessed, because we've not been hit by the economic crisis worldwide.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So I don't know why we have to rock the boat this time, right? So, Jean, what can you add to that? I mean, it's terrible. Like the U.S., it's a growing population.
Yes.
Right. We're in a bad situation as far as Social Security because of the number of people paying into the system are declining. We have an aging population. Our over 65 population will be probably doubling within the next 20 years. And who's going to pay for all this? We don't have the young people.
And of course, the de-Christianization in Europe, you can see the change of landscape. It's horrendous. We've just been there, and I'm not going to say, but if you go to Geneva and London and Paris, you can see that the Christians are nowhere to be found anymore. The stores are all over. It has become an Islamization.
I think you mentioned that. I think that's the real reason why the first world is deadly scared about this issue of population, runaway population growth. Because if you check the United Nations FPA website, you'll find out that the fastest growing, as far as population-wise is concerned, countries, all belong to the African states. And so if you take a look at demographics in Africa, in
and
some
the
of those
Muslims
countries.
also do not have
Exactly, exactly.
population control, as
Exactly.
where
Exactly.
Christians are really, conscious of it.
Yes. Well, I'd like to cite the country that is the poster child, so to speak, of the Filipino economists who are in favor of RH bill, Thailand. So they keep on saying that in Thailand, they succeeded in controlling population through the massive distribution of condoms in the last century. Well, take a look at what Thailand right now is. Thailand is going to be the first country in the history of humanity to grow old before becoming rich. Thailand is still a poor country. Just to cite per capita figures, Thailand has something like $4,000 per capita. Singapore, just to use the standard of Singapore, is $40,000 per capita. But Thailand now has an aging population larger than Singapore. 8.8% of the Thai population is above 65, while in Singapore it's only 8.2. And that's why those economists who are talking about emerging markets exclude Thailand, because they see that in the next 20 years, Thailand will be in a very sorry state of still being poor, but already suffering.
But no offense to Thailand, they're also known to be the AIDS capital.
That's another thing,
right?
That's another thing.
That the distribution of condoms is
that's
very
the second tragedy that has hit Thailand.
I mean,
1 million people with HIV/AIDS. So definitely.
So this will definitely not solve the problem of AIDS. And after all, we're also low in our HIV, right? You know.
Well, they have an explanation for that. I think researchers have that explanation that when you use a condom, it's like taking out an insurance policy. For example, if you have a car or a motorcycle, and if you know that you're insured, you're prone to take more risks. You might even drive your car a little faster. You might park your motorcycle in a more dangerous place. That makes you more open to threats. And if you use a condom every time you have sex, that means that you'll be more daring. You'll have more partners. And exposing yourself to absolutely more risk than you had before when you were not wearing one.
Yeah, well, we'll be talking about the efficacy of condoms maybe a little bit later, but there is a very high rate of malfunctioning of condoms.
Yeah,
it's like 2%.
We will devote a whole show on AIDS and HIV-related and condoms and the abortive fashions. Let's just zero in now on the overpopulation myth, because that's the argument of everyone, even the common people. When I talk to them, punong-puno na kasi ang Pilipinas, mabuti yan, magkaroon tayo ng ganyan. So there are a lot of people are really not informed, So we'd like to really zero in on that overpopulation thing.
Now, another figure we have to cite about this overpopulation thing. You're going to speak about overpopulation, absolutely. It's always in terms of population density. So number of people per square kilometers. Now, let me give you this bit information. Singapore has 15,000 persons per square kilometer. Hong Kong, about 6,000 persons per square kilometer. And they have per capita incomes that, as I said, between $35,000 to $40,000. The Philippines has a population density of just over 300 persons per square kilometer. So how can we call the Philippines overpopulated?
In other words, we have a much wide open space.
Exactly. When you have neighbors who are very rich but are so densely populated. In fact, just to finally demolish this argument, the population of the Philippines will peak in 2050 at 145 million persons. And then it will start declining, because by that time, you will already have less than 2.1 babies per fertile woman. But at 145 million, our population density in 2050 will only be equal to the population density of Korea today, about 430 persons per square kilometer. And Korea is a first world country today. And Korea has no resources whatsoever. So as long as we focus on education, training, values formation, we will be more than first world in 100
I agree with that.
2045.
Totally.
Yes.
Yes, and then we shouldn't be worried because we are sending our people all over the world. So these Filipinos are really a gift to the world.
Ibig mong sabihin, ang isang pamilya na kumakalamang sikmura sa isang barong-barong, pupuntahan mo at sasabihin mo, dahil ikaw ay naghihirap, dahil wala kang makain, etong solusyon, bibigyan kita ng kondom. Paano mo kakainin ng kondom kung kumakalamang sikmura mo? Kaya hindi po maintindihan nating mga kababayan na hindi yan ang solusyon. Hanapan ng hanap buhay, bigyan ng magagandang pagkakakitaan para lumago ang ekonomiya ng ating bansa.
Okay, we'll be talking about the RH bill, the effect of this to our nation. We'll be right back after this short message, so stay with us. More to come. Welcome back to Heart Talk, gumagandang usapan, and let's talk more about the effects of this RH bill in case it's become to pass, no? So let's talk about, will the poor be richer, you know, if this bill is going to be passed?
Well, I can say absolutely no. If the RH bill is passed, there will be more poor people. Again, common sense, no? I'm using the favorite expression now of Manny Pacquiao, who is definitely very pro-life. Common sense, no? The vast majority of the poor, 75% of the poor, are in the rural areas. They are farmers. And it is common sense that you cannot tell a poor farmer, it was already mentioned, to have only 2 children. If actually the RH bill succeeds in convincing these people to have only 2 children, they'll even starve because a household in the farm has been neglected. No irrigation system, no water, no farm-to-market roads. They have to do everything mano-mano. And so that's why they need a large family to be able to survive. In fact, we know that a lot of grade school children don't go beyond grade 6 because they're needed as hands. Now, it is nonsense to say we have to help the poor to have smaller sizes because the poor are in situations where responsible parenthood, incidentally, that's one thing I would like to remind people. Responsible parenthood means limiting or spacing children when there is an extraordinary threat to the life of the mother or when there's extreme poverty. Or it could mean planning for a large size if there are economic reasons, and either in the case of the farmer, economic reasons to have a large family, or in the case of rich people, there's absolutely no reason why they should limit the number of children. Right. So people always forget that. They always say responsible parenthood, but it always means limiting the number of children.
So it's not just an economic issue, it's also a moral issue.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So definitely it will not help alleviate poverty. It will even worsen our situation. Right?
And not only that, because our experience already in the period where family planning was aggressively pursued during the time of Marcos, the last 5 or 6 years, was that all the money spent was completely wasted precisely because it is so anti-cultural. We're even talking about moral reason.
Right.
Do you know what happened? And this was a public confession made by Blas Ople, who was Secretary of Education, Minister of Education, of Labor at the time. He said they were aghast when they found out that the people who received pills were using them as fertilizers.
Correct.
And the people who received condoms were covering mangoes and guavas with the condoms to protect them against insects.
So it was a total waste.
Absolutely. They were not, because people, especially in the rural areas, just feel it's completely against their tradition to be contraceptive in mentality.
So how much of the national budget is allotted to this?
Well, as the attorney said, equivalent to the budget of these state universities. No?
Around $1 billion. That was the Lagman proposal before. Dadagdagan ko lang yung sinabi ni Dr. Villegas na ito ay talagang taliwas sa kultura ng Pilipino. Yung mga nanay na nakikinig o nanonood sa amin ngayon, yung mga magulang, di po ba sinasabi natin na kahit na mahirap ang buhay, igagapang natin ang ating mga anak, mapagtapos lamang? Tatanungin ko kayo, sino sa anak ninyo ang gusto ninyong sanang namatay na o hindi na pinanganak? Walang sasagot na meron sa mga anak niya na gusto niyang hindi nabuhay. This is so anti-Catholic, this is so anti-Christian, this is also anti-Filipino.
Anti-humanity.
Anti-humanity.
Definitely, right? So let's talk about the
sex also to prevent pregnancy and to prevent STDs. So there are many things wrong with classroom sex education, and this is a whole topic, but it's one of the most offensive things in the RH bill, actually.
Correct.
Because that's where they're going to break down the values of individuals, of families, communities, and whole countries. That is the way they're going to engineer the minds and hearts of people to accept their values, to break down all the mental barriers that we have. So what I find the most dangerous thing in this RH bill is the sex education, actually. Without that, they will not succeed. So they need the sex education to succeed in the other things in the bill.
Meron kasi yung constitutional violation na naman, Sister Baby. Kasi sa ating saligang batas, ang pamilya, ang mamagulang, ang may primary duty in the education of their children. Tapos, sa RH bill, tuturuan ang mga batang elementarya ng mga bagay-bagay tungkol sa sex education na hindi naaangkop sa kanilang edad para kontrolin ang kanilang isipan na magkaroon din ng contraceptive mentality. Ibig sabihin, kayong mga nanay, kayong mga tatay, tinatanggal ng pamahalaan ang inyong karapatan na gabayan ang edukasyon ng inyong mga anak. Sinong matinong tao ang papayag sa ganon? You will have no longer say in the education of your children, especially so in a very important aspect on sex education.
Not just sex education, because we'll also have a topic of that sex education part, but also the sanctity of marriage, the trust, no? The husband can have vasectomy without telling the wife, and the wife can have ligation without telling the husband. So there is already a betrayal of trust. Right? So it's really affecting the relationships and also, again, the trust of the children also. At age 13, I think they can decide what they want to do with their bodies.
Yes,
right?
There's a provision there that reproductive health services should be given to everyone, regardless of gender, age. No, so I was regardless of age. No, so that means anyone can go to a reproductive health center and avail of services.
Hindi, ayon nga sa go ahead.
Go ahead.
Ayon talaga sa mga sinasabi ng mga kasama ko, talagang gustong baguhin parang yung kultura ng Pilipino sa pamamagitan nitong RH bill na ito. At sana naman, kung gusto nilang gawin yon, meron sana silang pinapakita doon sa kanilang kultura na gusto nilang gawin din dito na umaandar, na maganda. Kaya lang, doon sa sariling bansa, ang pangit na ng patakbo ng kanilang kultura. Tumataas yung mga teenage pregnancies. Nawawasak ang mga bahay, ang taas-taas ng divorce rates. Bukod pa dun, yung surge in STDs or sexually transmitted diseases.
Increase in abortion.
Tapos, increase in abortions. Yung mga matatanda na nakikita nila na wala ng silbi at parang may konting sakit, gusto nang mamatay. Yung euthanasia, ginagawa nilang legal. Yung pwedeng rin patayin hindi lang yung unborn child, kung hindi yung hindi na sumisilbing matanda. So, lahat ito ay sanhi ng kanilang kultura na gusto nilang ibigay sa atin.
In fact, there is evidence from an anti-Catholic Nobel Prize winner by the name of George Akerlof. He did a correlation between a contraceptive mentality and all of these problems. More divorces, more abortion, more adolescents who are mentally unbalanced. And he showed that precisely a contraceptive mentality leads to all of these problems of the family. And so this has nothing to do with morals. It's evidence that in these countries, they are facing so many social problems because of contraception.
Dadagdag ako doon sa sinabi ni Congressman Reyes na ito ay laban sa pamilya at labag sa pamilya. Isa na naman yung constitutional violation sapagkat sa ating saligang batas kinikilala ang kasal bilang siyang batayan ng pamilya. Paano sinasira ng RH bill yung ating kasal, the sanctity of marriage, at ang pamilya? Una, kasi ang marriage is supposed to be procreative and unitive. Tinanggal na yung procreative aspect kasi ayaw na nga magkaanak. Yung unitive aspect at yung principle of mutuality na yung mag-asawa nag-uusap sapagkat mutual na kayo eh. May karapatan ka sa katawan ng bawat isa. Halimbawa, may isang babae at isang lalaki, kumbaga humabol sa huling biyahe, nagpakasal, on the understanding na gusto na nila magkaanak. Pero yung pala, yung babae, ayaw niyang magbuntis. Nagtitake siya ng pills, hindi niya sinasabi sa kanyang asawang lalaki. So ano yun? Panluloko yun eh. It is a betrayal of trust. And it destroys marriage.
Well, we're supposed to be distributing condoms, and condoms is synonymous to promiscuity, right? So in effect, we are promoting promiscuity. You know, and as you mentioned, the first world countries who had all of this now are facing a moral bankruptcy.
Yes.
Right?
But I think there is a moral problem with the fact that our youngsters are sexually mature at an age of 14 and 15, and marriage is postponed until the late 20s, early 30s in some cases. Now, the church definitely has to do something to alleviate the problem with the sexual drives that these young people
Like I
have.
think all of us, we're the church, we all have our responsibility. We cannot be silent anymore. We have to really, all of the surveys that we get, media is sort of like promoting it because all of these glaring headlines that, the survey says that 79% would go for it, but I think there are a lot of misinformation.
Those surveys, I think the people they're asking don't really understand all the contents of the RH bill.
They put words into the mouth of the respondents.
Are you in favor of reproductive health? Now, of course, everybody's going to say yes, we're in favor of reproductive health.
It's very misleading. The title of the bill is reproductive health, but definitely it's not healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the phrase is a technical word that means a specific thing. So many people don't know that it's a technical word. That means something to the proponents, but they're not understood by anybody else reading the...
But I can believe that can happen. We have been going around schools, around Metro Manila, both public and private schools. And I recall a certain experience with a public college where I started off the intervention because we have workshops there for pro-life. And I took, it's not a survey, but a census of about 200 students who were in the room. I divided the room into two, and I told them, when you get married, those who think that it's okay to use artificial contraceptives, please sit to the right. Those who don't believe that it is correct to use artificial contraceptives when you're married, say to the left. The room where it was okay to use artificial contraceptives was full. Puno. They didn't find anything wrong with using artificial contraceptives when they got married. Now, that's when we began our intervention. And the first topic we had was when life begins. At the end of the about an hour and a half seminar, we took another survey, and all of them had switched. You know what the reason was? They didn't know that life begins during fertilization. Na may buhay na pala na pinapatay. Then when they saw that it was a life, they got guilty and they said that they didn't want to kill anymore by using these abortifacients.
And these are high schoolers?
No, these are college
And they didn't
students.
learn
They didn't know
the beginning of life was fertilization?
They didn't know
Akala
that.
nila siguro after to the
Hindi
3
nila
weeks
alam.
or after,
You learn that in biology in high school.
Hindi nila alam.
Or they were told differently by their teachers.
And so I don't think even the teachers in public schools especially are very clear about that. And that was really
and the
an
contraceptive
eye-opener.
pills too, it really affect your health. Sometimes it's you can have cancer.
Of course. Pero ito pa lang sa buhay, that you can put the fertilized egg in danger. They didn't know. And when they found out, all of them signed the manifesto that they were already becoming pro-life. So I believe those surveys because they are uninformed.
The surveys are not reliable because they are given to people who are not informed.
Correct. That's. But if you tell them that you might be taking a human life, are you still in favor of the RH bill? I don't think that they'd answer
And
in
then
the affirmative.
there are many favorable aspects of the RH bill.
Sure.
And so, you could something that's favorable and say, do you agree with this? And of course, everybody will say yes.
Like maternal health, for example. Who's against maternal health?
Ang masama dyan para bagang yung RH bill sa ngayon ay gatas na hinaluan ng lason. Hindi tayo kumokontra dun sa gatas Yung lason ang ating kinokontra dahil kahit nakatiting yung lason na ilagay mo sa pagkain, ikamamatay mo. Yun ang dapat na maintindihan ng ating mga kababayan.
Well, even some of the congressmen, they don't really know the repercussions, right?
No.
They just sign, they become co-sponsors, and after explaining to them, they retract. And
Well, because the bill, baby, contains a provision that allocates a mobile van for each congressional district. And so this health van will have the name of the congressman and will go around the district giving reproductive health programs and medicines.
Well,
so there is a sweetener also for the congressman.
Well, we will be talking more about how we can help stop the RH bill. We'll be right back after this short message. We will have Ms. Tracy Cepeda Season to join us. Welcome back to Heart Talk. I'd like to welcome our distinguished guest, Feisty, Mrs. Season, Tracy Season. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, how are you? Okay. And hello to everyone.
Okay. You know, we have been discussing about the effects of this RH bill and all of this survey that's going on, and we are alarmed. You know, why is it that people are for it when we all know that this is detrimental to our health, no? And also it's a moral issue, it's economic issue, and definitely it's not exactly what they are saying about RH bill. Okay, what is your resistance? Why is it that all of us, all those who are really devout Catholics, committed Catholics, why are we all against it?
That's a big question, huh? Let me start maybe with a few. First of all, if you're really a Catholic, you know it's against your faith. It promotes certain activities that go right smack against our Catholic faith. And if we must really be Catholic, we have to follow. It's universal, no? Like, for example, the use of contraceptives. I have a different take on that. Contraceptives go straight directly against the will and the law of God. Because how can a creature tell a creator, you cannot create with me right now, hold it. And we are supposed to be agents of creation, working with the Lord to fulfill His divine will here on earth.
Right.
When you use contraceptives, you're telling the Lord, you little puny little being creature there, hey, wait a moment. I think let's put things in proper perspective. There are roles that everyone takes. Even in a country, you have a president and you have citizens. Each one has a role. You have a manager and you have an employee. Each one has a role. The Lord, who is infinitely intelligent and all-knowing, must know exactly what He wants with His creatures, what He wants and expects from them. And who are we to tell Him? That's my very simple way of looking at it as
and
a Catholic.
He's a great provider, so why worry, right?
Exactly.
A child is always a blessing, no matter
As He
what.
never provided, it's when man breaks His law. And it is not even the Lord that gives us the punishment. He's perfect. So when you break a law, even His law is perfect, you're going against the law. So the law will have to
and
treat
there's also
you.
accountability. Huh?
There's accountability.
Accountability, definitely. And we are going to be judged by history. This is the generation that brought in this RH bill. Can you imagine?
Yes.
So we have to stop this, right?
Yes.
So let's talk now on how we could help stop the RH bill. Are we going to be quiet, meek as a lamb, and be like Jesus when He faced the soldiers at the Garden of Gethsemane? Or are we going to be warriors, like when Jesus was so incensed and so angry during the time when the vendors were all over at the sacred temple, no? So we have to make a decision. People are confused. How are they going to handle this?
So first of all, I would suggest that all Catholics who want to be faithful to their religion must use their respective professional expertise. Lawyers, economists, doctors, engineers, and find provisions in the RH bill that they can attack from, first of all, their lay scientific professional point of view. So that this idea that you're only against it because of your religion, which is completely false. No, we're against it. And Muslims join us, Buddhists join us. As I said, non-anti-Catholics join us because they see that there are so many provisions in the RH bill that go against good things that they see in their respective professions. So that's the way we can be very aggressive. Now, of course, from time to time, you also have to join the bishops and the priests to remind them about the immorality of artificial contraceptives. We also have to say that. But I think we have to spread the work among many, many professions and expertise so that we can really weaken the foundation of the RH bill.
Well, we explained earlier, we have to emphasize that we are not poor because of overpopulation.
Exactly.
We are poor because
corruption, because of
lack of
wrong
distribution.
economic policies, etc., etc.
And then also, we have to also reflect on ourselves. You know, are we being just to our employees? You know, definitely all these big companies, big corporations, you know, definitely the problem is not on our reproductive system. Definitely.
I think also, baby, it's the lifestyle that we have taken. You know, the very rich have really lived a profligate life, and that's got to stop. And there's a lot of sins to pay for profligacy. And I think also middle-income people and the lower-income people should work together, like a family, like a country that cares for one another. We should care for our environment. We should care for one another. We should care for our health. And we can certainly share the bounties that we have. I think I'm going to address those of you out there who are so landed. There's no business for any one family to own so much land. Because this land, owning land is really not ownership, it's stewardship. And it must be shared with a larger lot. The Lord did not create this earth and put it in the hands of a few. He wanted to give it to everyone.
Beautifully said, you know. And also this concern about having 2 children. Our country is not meant to have only 2 kids. You know, we are so blessed as a nation. And then the Filipinos are the evangelists, right? We go all over Europe, the Middle East, and we carry with us the rosary. But this is not just a religious problem. No. This is a moral problem, right? Would you like to add something, Lucille?
On how to stop the RH bill.
Right.
I have many thoughts about that. First, I think we really have to pray a lot because, you know, I'm often asked after a lecture, how come people still are not convinced about the dangers of this bill when the facts speak for themselves? And then, you know, when you're dealing with changing the minds of people, you need the Holy Spirit there. No matter how much you argue,
Definitely.
present your facts, they need to change something in their thinking. You need prayer there. So I think we have to pray a lot. But secondly, I also believe we have to keep educating everybody, including from top to bottom. And at the end of the day, we have to educate those who will cast their vote in Batasan, whether to approve or disapprove
all
this
those
bill.
people out there just at home, they can help us by praying.
Yes.
And considering that December 8th is the feast day of the
Yes.
Immaculate Conception,
Yes.
and definitely the Philippines is a matriarchal society.
Yes.
Our Lady is very popular, who's been helping us, protecting us. You know, so she would hang on.
Not to
every
mention December
investment.
12, a favorite
Our
feast of
Lady
yours.
of Guadalupe.
Remember, she's supposed to be pregnant in that.
The patroness of pro-life.
The unborn
Exactly,
child.
yes.
is there.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. So our time is so fast, and we'll be having our part 2. Definitely, it will be shown December 18. We'll talk more about this, you know, more about the RH bill, about AIDS, about abortive fashions, and we'll talk about sex education also. So for parting message, I'll ask Jean, my better half, to give about.
Okay. Right now, the battle is in the House. Contact your congressman.
Thank you, Lucille. Thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to reschedule your patients.
So I could come here. Well, I like everyone to be heard. So the congressman will vote against the bill if they hear their constituents also against the bill, because they can lose their seat in the next election if they don't follow their constituents.
Okay, thank you for that. And Marwil?
Una, I would like to invite our televiewers to attend our catechetical conference at Santa Catalina College tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning. Kasi dapat nating dadalhin ang mga usapin na ganito sa ating mga taong bayan. Kasi napakataas po ng ignorance. Hindi nila alam. So it is only through education that we can counter this. Because we have been fed with a steady diet of lies that we can only defeat it by the power of truth and by the quality of the witness of our lives as Catholics and as Christians.
Thank you, Marvil, for spending time with us. And Congressman Edmund Reyes, thank you.
Thank you, baby, for inviting me. And my parting words are education, education, education. Really, if we are to be optimistic about it, we will defeat the RH bill. The key will be education. But even if we lose and this bill passes, we still need to educate our people to defend their family. Because it doesn't mean just because a law is passed that you have to follow it. We're still empowered enough in our own families and our own households to do what is right. And therefore, that all starts with knowing the truth and being educated.
Well, I still would not concede yet. I think that
Of
we're
course,
going to win,
of course.
you know, in this battle.
But whatever happens, the key really is to educate and to spread,
You're right.
spread the truth.
Continuing struggle.
Spread the truth.
Keep the faith and keep on fighting, Edmund.
Yes.
Okay, and Tracy?
I'm a warrior.
I know that. Okay.
So I'm a warrior for my faith. And like Lucille here, we can't do anything by ourselves. The Lord is the commander-in-chief. We just follow suit what He commands us. He wants us to preserve and promote life. We should do it. And to be able to do it, we need a lot of grace and a lot of strength and prayers. So it's really action, but prayer first, and then action. And words for education.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tracy. Okay. And of course, Dr. Bernie Villegas, spending time with us. It's an honor and a privilege, and thank you.
Thank you for inviting me, yes. Just to build on the advice given by Jean to congressmen, I'll ask all Congress people to talk to their colleague Manny Pacquiao, who can give them at least 5 very strong arguments against the RH bill. So listen to your colleague.
Can you repeat
Manny
what
Pacquiao.
Manny Pacquiao said? Maybe.
Yes, well, first of all, he said that he has read the Bible and he cannot read anything there about controlling population. In fact, he says it's the opposite. God told us increase and multiply. No? But the first thing that he said, which was definitely a very candid statement, is, "Ako po ay Katoliko cerrado," which means he is completely faithful to the Holy Father.
Okay.
And then
he
the
belongs
others. Then he
also to
says
the family,
that then he said that population is not the source of poverty; it is corruption. So I mean, he summarized what we have said for us, and
Beautiful, no?
this was supposed to have been. This is of course just hearsay. This was supposed to have been said directly to President Aquino.
Okay, and
Yes.
then again, more power to you and to your school, the University,
Thank you.
University of Asia Pacific. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us. You know, brothers and sisters in Christ, we're asking you to cry out and be heard. We're asking you to take up the pro-life banner by living pro-lives every day and doing everything in your power to promote a pro-life lifestyle. This means living chaste and virtuous lives. This means promoting family values and co-creating families. When you are married, also do not be afraid to speak up for life. Do not be afraid to speak up whatever threatens life. If the weak and marginalized continue to be exploited by our silence, we betray not only Christianity but our humanity. Yes, proclaiming the truth of pro-life may cost us. It may cost us severely, but suffering is part of being a disciple of Jesus. The assault of human life in our age has become a crisis of culture, even more a crisis of civilization. True Christians must not remain silent. In the crisis in the defense of human life, neutrality is not an option. Silence is not a choice. In this crisis, let there be no doubt in the minds of anyone where we stand. Let your entire life be a burning desire to promote sanctity of life. We may have made wrong choices and have sinned in the past and may have sided on the dark side, but let us change now, and please do not become discouraged. A candle is not diminished by the dark. Hope overcomes darkness of doubt, skepticism, and despair. We must keep these issues burning before the eyes of the public in our conversations and emails, but especially our lives, because they speak the loudest. History will judge us on this issue. What will be the verdict? Will we be known as the generation that promoted the culture of death in the only Catholic country in Asia? Will we be like those who kept silent, or will they call us true pro-life Christians who do not keep silent but spoke up to the sanctity of life and Christian values? Those assaulted by our culture of death have nobody to speak up for them, nobody, and that is except us. Are we Christian enough to recognize their needs and to speak up, or even shout on their behalf? You know, the Eucharist binds us together as God's family and sends us forth, challenged and changed to live our life in a very real way in the very real world. May God help us to meet this challenge as true pro-life Christians. Good night and God bless everyone. Next week we will have Dr. Courtney Bartholomew. We'll talk about his book, The End of This Era, with attorney Marvil Yasos and Father Rene Ruelios. See you again next week as we give you another interesting, insightful, informative, heart-to-heart talk.
All for Jesus, this is our mission, this is our goal. Wake each morning ready to do battle. us is all united in